if you just take a minute and just do an introduction of who you are, what you do, anything you feel comfortable or want to share.
Amazing. I'm so excited to be here. So, as you know, my name is Kara, and I am the Chief Fun Officer of the Playful Warrior. So, I'm a play and mindset coach for adults. And basically, my goal is to help people heal perfectionism, heal their inner child, really learn that they are inherently worthy and actually feel that and feel that they are enough in everything they do. And I do that through play and I do that through mindset. Those have been the two components for me that have really been life changing as a recovering perfectionist who used to have so much shame and fear of what other people thought of me. And I was really driven by that. I found that I was never playing authentically. The only play I did was very competitive. It was very curated or choreographed with this goal to have it always looking good. And when I started learning about play and I was doing inner child healing, I realized that that's not actually what play is about. Play is really about connecting to the present moment, to our curiosity, our spontaneity, and learning to have fun without needing to prove ourselves. And I always felt like I had to prove myself. So I went on this journey myself of healing my inner child and really started getting so much inspiration, connecting to my imagination. I came up with all these ways that adults could play because of my inner child connection, and realized that there was nothing really out there that was like this. And I wanted to spread the power of play because it just changed my life. And yeah, with the mindset work as well was super important because I previously worked in a corporate career where I was very much like a people pleaser, shapeshifter, chameleon, not doing anything I really wanted to do. And so to go to like a play coach was a huge shift. So I had a lot of mindset blocks around my worthiness to do that. And so I got into NLP, I got into hypnotherapy, and that really boosted my confidence and changed everything for me. So then I ended up building this play and mindset business and really realized like, yeah, those two things are what changed everything for me.
I related to you so much in regards to your story about being in corporate and shape shifting and being a chameleon and just constantly, this is my like life. I actually have a really great job now. It's still a corporate position. And that is something for me that I've been in corporate for 19 years and I thought that's the direction I was supposed to go. Like you're supposed to go get in corporate, climb the ladder. And I did all those things. And it seems like the more aware and the more awake and the more I really get in contact with me, the more I just feel like the divide was growing deeper and deeper and deeper. And the reason why I think I'm content now with the company that I'm with, it's a newer company I just started with. I don't think I've ever worked in a place where I don't feel like they're trying to control or manipulate me. They're actually just like, be a business of one. This is your lane. We trust you as the consultant of this area to do your thing. And I almost had this like, what? No, tell me what to do. Like, tell me, like, I don't know who to perform for. I don't know who I'm supposed to please. One of my hardest things coming into that company was who's the boss, because they really empower each person to be who they need to be in that space. And I'm like, that does not like settle with me. It's what I've always wanted, but I don't know how to react to it. So it literally, my boss has been taking me through a healing process in our one-on-ones in regards to, you are okay here. Like I just want you to be you. And I know how to do that outside of that setting, but in that setting. So when I was reading your story about being in corporate and just having this pull for, this is not me. What really got you to the place, like was your breaking point of saying, because I know a lot of people that are in the community of Blushing Phoenix, a lot of them do have corporate jobs. They're in that torn between, can I rise in my career? Do I even want to rise in my career? And they feel hindered. And there's like this divide between where they are and where they want to be. So what was it for you that really just kind of like put the nail in the coffin of like, I'm done, I'm moving on, and I'm going to go and take that leap into something that I think a lot of people, especially in corporate, because it gives this sense of safety, that financial safety, security, all of this illusion, that we as adults who lose that child in us start to just cling to that safety and that illusion of security. So what was that for you that really just kind of was like, I'm done, we're going?
Yeah, I feel like there were like a few moments. I know like the actual moment was just losing my job because of COVID. So they kind of made that decision for me. Like I had been thinking and ruminating for so many years that like, this is not for me. I don't want to do this. But I was always telling myself this story that I didn't know what I wanted to do. And by telling myself that story on repeat, I just made myself that much more stuck, right? I wasn't opening myself up to another story. But one really eye-opening moment was like a few months before I lost my job. I was actually offered a position at the company to be a vice president and to like own part of the company. It was like this thing that usually you should be so happy about, but I was like, oh my God, I don't want to do that at all. That sounds terrible. And as someone who was such an achiever, yeah, I thought maybe a moment like that would finally like give me that happiness, but it felt so icky inside. I was like, no way, that's not for me at all. So I actually said no to that. And I mean, it really pissed people off at the company. But I think like that was the first moment in my career of like really standing up for myself, really like really getting a lot of disapproval, but being like so solid in myself where I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna turn down that money, turn down that safety because that feels like such an abandonment of self. And then COVID came and and they decided to keep me in the company in my current position. But then COVID came and I lost my job. And it was so interesting because, like you mentioned, I was really in the corporate career because I got that safety and that security, and then I could live a good life in Toronto. And that was taken away in like a second. And as much as it was scary, there was like this part of me inside that was like relief. Like,
Mm.
oh, I can breathe now. I can actually like be my authentic self and figure out who that is. Because similar to you, I always felt like I was different people. Like I was never the same person. I like, I had like my personal Instagram where I could really be me, but then I had like this work persona and I had different personas going on. And I'm like, this is exhausting. I just want to be
Mm.
one person. This is like so exhausting. So in that moment of just like relief, like because I feel like the universe was just like, girl, you're not doing it yourself, so we're going to do it for you, and like you got to just leave this place. Because I also always say there's nothing wrong with corporate, right? Like if that is what makes you happy and you find ways to be happy in it, amazing. It was more just like in my soul, it had this calling since forever. Like I just knew that was
Mm.
not it, and I was just constantly ignoring it. And suppressing myself, and like just like going out drinking and doing all these things to try to like ignore that
Silence it a little
whisper.
bit, yeah. Oh, man,
Totally.
I can relate to this so much. People think I'm crazy too because 'cause they're like, "You went from, like, a C-level, like, executive to, a lower level position," and I'm like, "When you've been around the block, when you've achieved the things and you see what all it entails, you're like, I don't know if that's really important to me as I thought. I just here's what's important to me, peace and being able to look at myself in the mirror, and, there's all the kinds of things in the financial side as far as, like, making good decisions with the money that's there and all the different things instead of chasing this money dream, because once you've touched it and had it, you're like, I'm still me at the end of the day. It's still me.
Totally.
But I, in one of my former companies, when I first started Blushing Phoenix, I would let everybody know I would flush really bad after talking to my boss. Really nice guy, but I just felt so overwhelmed by, does he see me? Oh my gosh, he's going to see me. He's going to see that I'm an imposter. I don't really know what I'm doing. And it's just that like authoritative figure, I think, that would just make me go into this insecurity. And so I would flush out of like that nervousness and fight or flight. And recently, I don't work for him anymore, but we're still really close. And he owns his own business now, or he's the CEO of a business. And I was talking to him and actually talking to him about Blushing Phoenix. And I worked with him for 4 years. And so as I'm talking to him, I'm sure I like kind of pull my shirt down. I go, as you can see, I'm flushing. And then I go into this whole presentation about how chronic blushing affects people and all of this. I mean, he is blown away, number one. And then he looks at me and he says, I never once knew that that was happening to you. I never saw it. I never paid
Mm.
attention. All I ever saw was you. I never, he was so blown away. Like, I never would have thought this. And we, as people who struggle with that flushing and the appearance of that, it's very much like a, wait, what? Like, I've been hiding. And I mean, I do think obviously if I had a low cut shirt, he definitely would have noticed, but he just never paid attention. He was so much more interested in who I was, in the work that I was doing, in my gifts and my creativity. And so it brings me to my next question to you about your, you have a story on your Instagram that is about your epilepsy story. And it had me teary eyed. And I really want to, I'm going to link that in this so that people can go and just watch that because it's like 10 minutes long and I was glued to you. And you talked about acceptance and reclaiming parts of ourselves. And it was so relatable as a person with chronic blushing because you talked about you despised it. It made you feel shameful and you hid it. With the seizures, the fear, and people laughing at your seizures, feeling different, suffering in silence, and the fear of having seizures in front of people. Now they know, they see what I was trying to cover up. And I'm like in chills talking about it because I'm like, this is exactly what happens with the community of blushing Phoenix is that a lot of the things that I hear are their biggest fears of you're going to see me. I can't hide it. I despise it. I'm shameful of this. And so people suffer in silence because then they don't even want to talk about it because they don't want to draw attention to the fact that they flush or blush. And then people expect them to flush or blush after that. But for me, it's been healing. So that's the thing is that it's done the opposite thing. So I'm really curious for you just to kind of, if you're good with that, dive into a little bit of your epilepsy story and how you got from that place of shame and fear around it to that place of empowerment.
Yeah, I think it's so important to share because everything when you talk about like blushing Phoenix and the community, like, oh my gosh, those are all the same feelings I had. And even with you talking about being at work and like hiding it, I would do that. Like literally at work, I was so grateful there were cubicles because say I happened to have a daytime seizure, it's like no one could see me. And I'm not going to tell anyone I just had a seizure, even though I'm struggling and have a headache. Like it was just so wild how I operated. But yeah, so I was diagnosed with epilepsy in about grade 6 and didn't tell anyone except my family. But like even in my family, we didn't use the word seizure because I thought it was so like it just made me so different. So we used the word attack, like that was better. But that was still such like such a negative, like tense word to use. And most of my seizures happened at night. So it was nocturnal epilepsy. But that still meant I had a lot of issues in the daytime. Like I was super foggy, I was losing my memory. I just always had a headache, but it's like I wouldn't share that with people. I'd be like, oh, I'm fine, I'm good. And just tried to act out because I just wanted this love, like this love and this belonging. But sometimes randomly, because I didn't tell anyone, I would have like a tonic-clonic seizure. So I had it once like in grade 9 in front of a class. I had it once in this dance performance in my university concourse where like everyone knew. And like I remember waking up in the hospital from that and just like my thought wasn't like, oh, I'm so glad I'm alive or like I'm so glad I survived that because I just, like hit the floor with my head and it could have been very dangerous. It was like, oh my God, now people know, they're gonna think I'm a freak. And just for context too, like epileptics have like a really complicated history. They were always outcasts in society. They were thought of like demonic. Even like 100 years ago, you couldn't get married if you had epilepsy. Like it's so crazy learning about the history. So it's like there's all this like generational trauma, I feel like having epilepsy that is passed down because they were always thought of like as these demons. And so when people don't understand something as kids, right, it's like that laughter. So I think that was all just so ingrained in my subconscious. So I was like, I can't share this. Like, I'm a freak. I want people to think I'm normal. So when that happened, yeah, it just breaks my heart now, like seeing like all that shame I had. But then in my 20s, like later, I remember watching this video of this girl who was in a fashion show and she's like, and so she's a model and she's like walking down the runway, suddenly falls down and she has a seizure. So it's like out of nowhere and everyone kind of surrounds her. Then she gets up and she's like this and she's like so confident after it and she like keeps going. I'm like, holy crap, like I wish I could be like that and own it. And like this girl was younger than me and I was so inspired by that. And I started just like noticing and actually because I like never wanted to read about epilepsy. I never even wanted to get in a community about it because that would mean like accepting I have it. And I was always trying to tell myself a story I didn't have it. So something like Epilepsy Toronto, like I'm based in Toronto, like a community, never would have joined that. Like even probably Blushing Phoenix, I probably wouldn't have even wanted to watch your videos because that would mean I'm accepting that I'm different. And I just like wasn't even ready for that. So I was always trying to tell myself a different story. But once I started kind of just like in the news, like seeing these people, I was like, wow, that's really inspiring because the shame was just so heavy. And after that, I think like it was kind of like I started doing inner child healing, and I just realized how much shame I had that was like blocking me from being my true self, and just all this self-hate I had, really. And I just knew through therapy that like I had to let this go. So I started like following Epilepsy Toronto and like learning more about it. And I even had to like go to information sessions, even though I had it for so long. It's like I really didn't know that much about it. Like things like photosensitive epilepsy, and like, how often people assume that when lights flash that might trigger seizures. It's like only 3% of people with epilepsy are actually triggered by that. Like things like that. Like I just had no idea. So it was like I had to learn, and like this was happening at like age 30. I didn't know until till then. So it was like so late until my life. But once I started doing that work, I then slowly started telling like friends and family. Because obviously like people had seen it happen, but like no one really knew the story or what was happening internally. And then just because of like my mindset work I was doing, I was just becoming so confident, and then had so much compassion for myself that like, holy shit, I've just been living in shame my whole life. And I don't think, like, I think you can understand it and people in the community can, but if you don't have something like this, because one time when I would tell people, they'll be like, oh my God, that's not a big deal at all. Right. But it's like, yeah, it actually isn't. But like what I went through with it, it was just this like mental health battle, really.
Mhm.
Um, and once I just started sharing it, I just kept getting validation. And like, I was just like, wow, like I'm sure other people with epilepsy feel that way, or other conditions, right? It doesn't have to be specifically epilepsy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want anyone to feel the self loathing and the shame I had, because it was just debilitating.
And that's part of the reason too why I wanted to speak with you, is because even though this is specific to epilepsy, it is so similar. The things that you've gone through mentally, and the shame, and all the feelings, and the self-worth, all of those things is exactly what I have been through, and what I've heard others that I talk to every day. I mean, people every day from all over the world reach out and speak to me about how this is ruining my life. And when people ask me, I mean, a lot of times in this community specifically, there we are looking for a product, and there's a product that we're wanting that'll just like take it away. But similar to you in doing more research and looking into it, I had tried to look into this a few times, and there just was not enough information out there. And so then one day I was so tired of hiding. I had just gotten to that place where you're like, you're running from yourself. Like, where can you go? And every area of my life was thriving. But I would come home at the end of the day, and I would just be so fatigued and so tired. And I would just tears would just fall out of my face from exhaustion, and feeling like I'm not being true to me. Like there's a part of me that I'm not loving. And I love myself so much. But there's this one part that if this would just go away, then I would really love myself. And trying to figure out why it's happening, really, like, what can I do to control it and get it under control? What have I done? And I realized that I just couldn't find a lot of information on it. So I just turned my camera on. I was in the shower, and I got this like voice that just spoke. It's the voice of me that speaks to me very often. It's like that inner child, that inner you is saying, at the time I was working on my coaching business, and I was working on like positive motivational things. And I put a few YouTube videos out, and there just was like, not, like everybody's doing that. You're getting nothing out of that. And I'm in the shower, and I just hear this voice that says, you need to speak about this. And I'm like, absolutely not. And when you get that feeling, you're like, damn it, I have to. Like, I have to. When you
Yeah.
start having that internal argument, but that that you need to do that. And so I just turn the camera on, and I am that put together version of me is fresh out of the shower, rosy cheeks, a little splotchy, no makeup, and in my nightshirt. And I am just like, I am April, and I'm shivering and I'm just talking to a camera, and there's no audience. There's 0 subscribers at that point. And I just put it out there, and I, thought about taking it down a million times, and I was like, just let it be. And I just moved on. And then I just started talking. And the more I started like learning about it and speaking about it, talking to nobody on the internet, just the camera, I started to feel more empowered to learn about it, and learn that this is not something that I did to myself. This is not something that I can turn on or off or get rid of. It's so much deeper than that. And so it's really about whether it was a discouragement because there's not really one answer, or looking for a product, and there's not going to be one product. Because I think, to me, it's very similar to If you are dealing with depression, anxiety, and things of that nature, if you go to your therapist or your psychiatrist or a doctor, they're probably going to prescribe you something, but they're going to ask you to pair that with some sort of therapies. So there's other things they want you to do because it's multiple things that are going on. And that's what I look at with chronic blushing, is that it's very much one product's not going to solve the problem. And it's really about that's still hiding at the end of the day. We're still hiding when we're just looking for the product. But being able to talk about it, and similar to you, people had seen it happen to me. And when I started openly talking more about flushing, really close people would go, either I've never even noticed that about you ever, or they would say, I've seen it before, but I didn't think anything about it. I noticed that you get kind of splotchy on your neck and stuff, but I've never thought anything about it. But I had been in work settings where people are like, all eyes on you. Oh, we must have just really pissed you off. Look at how upset. Oh, look how red you're getting. And that is like the big thing for people who deal with chronic blushing, is that somebody pointed them out and singled them out for being different. And then it's so funny to me, Kara, that then we spend like our whole adult life, like we want to be different. Like we want to be us ourselves, but we don't want to be the thing that we don't think is pretty or put together. And that brings me to my next question with you. You've got a lot of things that I like to look at you as like a person who knows a lot of things through your certified life and success coaching, a practitioner of NLP, hypnotherapy, EFT tapping, and time techniques. And a lot of these things are suggestions that I make to the people in the Blushing Phoenix community. So I want to kind of break down each one of these and go into, first of all, what is NLP and how can that help people?
NLP has been hugely helpful for me. The simplest way to put it is it's like studying the language of our mind. So essentially, with NLP, we can change your thoughts and behaviors to help you get your dream life, get whatever outcomes, get whatever goals you're hoping to achieve. So there's a bunch of different techniques I do with NLP. So essentially, these can be different techniques to help it make it easier to change your thoughts and behaviors. So I can just give a few examples. Like one example that's really powerful in NLP is called parts integration. So with parts integration, we can look at conflicting parts. So maybe part of you really wants to start your own business, you're excited about this idea, but another part of you is terrified to put yourself out there and so scared of judgment. So with NLP, we're able to talk with your mind and bring up what's under the surface more. And actually, like with that technique, we integrate your parts and we realize that there was higher purpose that both of these parts want. Both of these parts are wanting love and safety and happiness and freedom, but they're manifesting in this other way. So by just talking to your mind and asking specific questions, we're able to bring them together and create more harmony. So that's one specific example. A lot of NLP is around limiting beliefs as well. So beliefs like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not safe to play, I'm not safe to express myself, or I'll be abandoned. A lot of money beliefs as well. So we look at you, we look at what beliefs are in your subconscious, and we start rewiring your belief using different language and using learnings that you are the one that does learnings. It's not like I'm telling you these are the learnings. We make sure that you are the one that bring up the learnings just based on my questioning. So you're always your own guru. It's never me, but I just guide you through it. And what's really great is that we can rewire your subconscious with NLP without having to really dig through trauma. So that's one really nice thing, is that you don't have to, just like relive trauma. And it doesn't have to be super heavy. We can get and move forward at a really like bird's eye view and like zooming out of what's happened in your life. So I know that was really helpful for me.
As a person who's actually moved through a lot of trauma, and then you can get stuck there a lot of times. Or I always tell my husband, I'm like, have you ever talked because I need to talk to get it out because I'm an extrovert. I'm like, have you ever talked so much that you're just tired of hearing yourself and you're just like, move on? Like you get to that place of like, we've processed, we understand you've gone through these things. It's time to move on now. And those are the things I do with myself. But I actually have looked into NLP a little bit. I think I actually have a course that I haven't taken on it, but to go with my life coaching. But it's something that I think is really interesting because of that point right there, is that you can get that bird's eye view. You do have the power to change the way you're thinking about things and the way you're reacting to things in that subconscious part of you. And also being able to I feel like we've been a society that's really caught on the trauma for a long time. Like, well, this happened to me and this is why I'm this way. And but then what? You know, that's a big thing. I think even for me as being a chronic flusher, it's one of those things where you get to a place where I'm like, but who am I anyway? Like, who am I going to be? There's so many things, dreams and visions I've had since I was a kid. Is this thing going to stop me from doing all of that? And I have gotten in the headspace. There are days where it was hard, and it is like I don't think I could ever be, front and center. I could not sell books and talk publicly because of this thing. And you go into that spiral. But then I kind of sit there and I go, yeah, I don't think so. We're going to have to figure something else out because there's just like an engine that is like burning inside of me that just has to go. Oh, and back to a little bit of your epilepsy story. You mentioned in that video that because you have the nocturnal epilepsy, there's like a high probability that you could die in your sleep, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
that kind of
It's
gave you
terrifying.
your fire for life and like literally for life in regards to how scary that condition can be.
I didn't even know that because I hadn't gone to the, like I told you, I had to get like education. So I only realized that at age 30, which is like so wild. And it made sense because my parents, I know, were always so nervous about me, were always coming in and checking in on me. And I was like, oh, this is like way too much. Like I was getting in a lot of pain and stuff from just like injuries and like, getting bruises and stuff from like having seizures at night and falling on the floor. But I don't know, I never thought it was that serious, like life or death. And then realizing I was like actually highly probable for that, it was like, oh my goodness. Yeah, life is so fragile. There's no time to spare. And it's really hard for me not to get caught up in fear. So I have
Mhm.
like a lot of fear generationally, like family came from Poland, we're prisoners of war. So it's just like so ingrained in me, this fear. So all this NLP work, time techniques, hypnotherapy has been so crucial for me to start rewiring my subconscious mind, to like move through that fear and actually start like operating with confidence and trust.
And that takes me to my next question in regards to hypnotherapy. So I know that there's some stigmas around hypnotherapy from things in the past. What can somebody expect from hypnotherapy? What is hypnotherapy? How does it help? And what could they expect if they were to do some hypnotherapy with you?
Hypnotherapy is the best. It is my favorite. So it is nothing like you've seen in the media or TV. It is not spooky. It is not voodoo. It is not mind
Like,
control.
yeah.
No,
Follow my
we
finger.
don't
Follow
do
my
that.
finger.
Yeah. We will not get you clucking like a chicken. Any of that stuff is so silly. So hypnotherapy is really just a way to talk with and access your subconscious mind. So we relax your conscious mind with hypnotic language. So you get to this place of deep relaxation and tranquility and peacefulness. Like honestly, someone who has a lot of anxiety, hypnosis is what's helped me the most with my anxiety because I can get deeper than in a meditation. But you are always in control. Like all hypnosis is self hypnosis. If I was like, you're going to go rob a bank, you're not going to go rob a bank. You're only going to do what feels good for you. And all the hypnosis I do are definitely things that are customized for a client around self love or a goal they're trying to achieve, or maybe even like they want to stop smoking, any of that stuff. But you don't have to worry about losing control because you won't. You don't have to worry about being like zonked out. It's just going to feel like you're at this spa for your mind. And honestly, you feel so freaking good after. I know I do, and all my clients have. But yeah, it's this powerful way where you feel good and you get to make changes and you actually get to rewire your thoughts and behaviors and actions to things you want. Because when we were kids, we were actually in a state of hypnosis when we were really young. But everything we were absorbing was not consciously what we would choose, right? It was just from our environment and family and school and institutions and the media and everything. So it's like hypnosis gives us a chance to take our power back and actually rewire what we would want in beliefs. And yeah, that's why it's my favorite.
I know that is something to me that is I, I'm sad that it's gotten such a bad name in the media, but I do think people are coming back around to it because they are
Yeah.
realizing that meditate, like you said, getting to go a little deeper than you could in a meditation, and you probably get there a little quicker too than you could in a
Yeah.
meditation. And then so then let's move over to EFT tapping because that is something that's come up a lot around this community. And I haven't done a ton of research in it, but I know a few people reach out to me and say, I tried this, it has helped a little bit. So from your perspective and from what you teach and share, what is EFT and how is that effective and helpful?
So EFT is emotional freedom technique. So essentially it is like acupuncture without the needles. So you get to tap on different energy meridian points. So yeah, I guess this is a video. So we would be tapping here, 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 your collarbone, under your armpit, and then the top of your head. Much slower than that, but just to give people an idea of where the energy meridian points are. And what we do is we get to actually bring up negative emotion. So if you are feeling stress, if you're feeling tension, if you're feeling fear of judgment, like whatever you are feeling, we start by tapping on that. So we're actually just allowing ourselves to feel the emotion, which is so important so we can move through it. And we do this in a self-soothing way where you have a practitioner with you and you're going through emotions and really allowing yourself to feel it. Before we start the session, we always see where are you at on a scale of 0 to 10. So like say the thing was about self-doubt. So it's like, where are you at? Like, are you feeling confident as ever? That would be like a 0. Or are you feeling like so much self-doubt it's paralyzing? Like that'd be a 10. So we see where you are. We start tapping. And once we've really brought out that emotion, we start shifting your state to feeling more confident, like slowly. So very slowly, we'll just start changing the language. So by the end of it, you're feeling confident. You're feeling so good. You're feeling like you have released that stress. And it is one of my favorites too. It's like helps so much for anxiety. If you have anxiety, it's an amazing thing to do because it's so important we feel our emotions. And you can just keep doing it and doing it because the subconscious mind loves repetition. And so the more you do it, the more that you will heal. And I know my clients who like regularly do my EFT tapping have truly changed their life, like from EFT tapping.
The last thing I've got on here for this portion is time techniques. Talk to us a little bit about what are time techniques.
Time techniques is really closely related to NLP. It stands for Time Integration for Maximum Empowerment, which is a lot of words, but essentially it is a way to go back into your subconscious timeline and empower you. So get helpful learnings to help you release negative emotions from events that, again, as kids, like generally from the ages of like 0 to 8, we are making decisions based on all or nothing thinking, black or white thinking, where we don't really have critical discernment. So we're making anger means something about us and how we're not worthy. We're making money decisions. We're learning that money doesn't grow on trees and you have to really work hard, and like corporate is the only way to make money, right? So we're making all of these decisions. So at time, you actually get to discover what your timeline looks like in your subconscious mind. And what's really cool about your subconscious timeline and working with the subconscious is your subconscious has no, like, the time is like not a concept with your subconscious, right? Like we can just like travel to age 0 in like a second. Like there's no time isn't thought of as consciously. So it's really cool getting to work with your subconscious timeline, and it can rewrite things really, really quickly as well. It doesn't take a lot of time. You can also go back generationally as well, which is really neat. So for me, time has been super powerful. For my clients, it's usually their favorite, that and hypnosis, because you're really finding a way to rewrite events that happen to you. So
and even just feeling empowered, even just knowing you can do that, I think for people who are listening to this, that wait, I can do that. I can, maybe all these things have happened to me in my life, or these decisions were made, or things I had no control of, and now I'm at a place, or there's these great tools and techniques that I can go back myself and be in control of that.
100%. It's so empowering. And I think too, if you come from a family with a lot of generational trauma, it's like it's such an opportunity now that you get to be the cycle breaker and you get to make a difference and rewrite your whole family lineage by doing this work.
So people who turn red, they deal with a lot of shame and self-worth issues. And I know that because you've said you've dealt with a lot of shame and low self-esteem yourself in the past. For people who are looking to come out of that, like, okay, I'm ready to change, I'm ready to shift, it can be very overwhelming when they go, where do I start? So I know sometimes there's just the inner calling that kind of pushes you into like one thing and then the next thing. But if you were giving advice to someone or just some suggestions to someone in regards to, they're listening to this information, they're like, oh, there's all these different things I could do, and then they want to do everything at once, it's overwhelming, they don't commit to that, and so now they're like, I'm back where I started, it's just too much. What would be your suggestion for where someone should start, just to even get started on their healing journey? If there was like one thing that they could jump into in regards to whether therapies or anything that you would be saying to a friend that's saying like, I'm struggling and blah, 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 what would be your suggestion to them on where to just get started?
Definitely meeting your inner child. So getting to know the little you. So for me, like that was super helpful because once I realized that, like, I thought back to little me before any trauma happened, before all the shame really started building, like just at 1 years old, right? Like I was experiencing the world with wonder. I was so fascinated by life. I was so playful before all this stuff happened. But realizing that there's this little me inside of me that wants to experience the world playfully and joyfully, and like life is such a gift, but I've abandoned her. I've abandoned her for so long and suppressed that part of me. She believes she's not lovable, hence I believe that. So starting to just literally connect with that, like even right now, I have a little picture of me to remind myself that, I have this little person and I'm parenting this little girl inside of me. So I think starting to connect with little you. So for example, say you go to create something. We can be so hard on ourselves when we create. We're so hypercritical of ourselves, or we think it needs to be perfect, or we're always saying, oh, this isn't good enough, or oh, he does that better than me, all this comparison. But it's like, if you start creating with your inner child, you're going to be kinder to yourself. Like, think about that you are creating with 4-year-old you. You're not going to be like, oh, this looks like shit, right? You're just going to be
It's
kinder to
amazing.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like that was like number one on my healing journey, was like, that really started building self-worth, was like showing up for my inner child and starting to make like daily small promises where I could build self-worth and commit to myself. And this could be as small as like, I'm going to drink 2 glasses of water, or I'm going to walk for 5 minutes, like really small things you can do, but you start building that self-trust. And like for me, from there, then I started playing and actually started learning how to express myself in a way where I could be joyful, but I didn't have to be hard on myself. It wasn't about achieving or pleasing, and learning I didn't have to prove myself was such a big part of it. And really then doing all the mindset work. There's so much you could do.
Let's talk about your Instagram. You have some of the best Instagram footage that I've ever seen. So it does look like you're getting a pretty great response out of that, and just the playfulness around it. But then you're also giving a lot of knowledgeable key points to people. And so I really want to suggest, and I will link all of it below, for people who are following Blushing Phoenix to definitely go check out your Instagram, because I think that, number one, you give really great information there that's really great reminders, but also you keep a lot of humor in it. I crack up at a lot of those. Have you found that that has been very helpful for you in expression, and then also for people that are finding you there?
Totally. I think it's super healing for me, because when I think about me as a really young kid, like I loved theater, I loved dance. Like if anyone would have asked me, I would have wanted to be an actress. I loved speaking, but then I suppressed all of that to try to like fit in and belong, and I didn't want to be weird. And so then I went my whole life being like, oh, I have no idea what I want to do, telling this sex story. But it's like, when I look back at me, like it's so obvious, like that was always there, right? But I was just so disconnected from my true self for a long time. But yeah, it's really cool. Like I just get to connect with my inner child now. And like when I play, like I just get all these ideas and I follow my imagination. I just allow myself to express myself. And I think it's really important to note too, because this surprises a lot of people I talk with. Like 3 years ago, I never even would have imagined myself filming a video, like, and putting it online. Like, because people are just like, oh, you're so confident on camera. I was like, no. I used to have so much self-doubt. Like, I felt like I was going to die posting a video. I was so scared of what people would think, right? So this is all where the mindset work come in. Like, everything, how I got to where I am today is this mindset work I'm talking about. But just know that, like, because I think I would have looked at people and been like, oh, it's so easy for her, or like it's more natural for her. But like, no, it was a journey of getting where I am now. But now I have a lot of fun doing it. And I love, like, it is play for me. I think like Instagram can be annoying in its own ways, and you definitely have to find ways to protect your mental health. But I love creating like creative, unique content. I try to stay away from the trends. Like I like to do stuff that's like, I'm not being rigid with my inner child, being like, you have to do it this way, and these are the parameters. It's like just exploring and seeing what comes up with my imagination. And I really just credit that to my own playtime, and yeah, just like allowing myself to flow with it.
It really comes across as well. As it's one of those things, is that it's very entertaining, but but also educational to watch it, because dealing with the corporate stuff myself and codependency and people pleasing and all the topics that you hit on are so spot on to myself, things that I've dealt with and things that people in this community deal with and just people in general deal with. Um, but I think it's interesting too about being confident on camera and, like you said, having that idea that somebody is just like, it's so natural and they do it so well. One of the things I've learned with doing Blushing Phoenix, and I've gotten some of those similar comments of people being like, oh, I can never be like you, or I'm trying to be where you are. And I'm like, um, you can do it. Like, you can absolutely do it. And the other
Totally.
thing about loving yourself is that when you are making content, especially if there is a video on that, you see yourself a lot. And so, like, even for me in the beginning of making videos, it was really easy for me to look at other videos and say, well, mine don't look as good. So why would people watch my videos? Or I I am a person who goes on tangents. It's what I do. And that's why I was even in some of my notes about like what you could expect from the interview. I'm like, I keep some bullet points just so I don't keep you for 4 hours. Like, that's all. I don't really mind about if people watch the video, they watch it. I don't really care about that part. But what it is like I enjoy the conversation. But in order to somewhat make it presentable and not waste your time, and you be like, I gotta go, is I try to keep myself on track. But I noticed that a big thing for me when I first started was just looking at, or I've had people comment and say, you just talk too much, and I'm like, delete this comment. That's not allowed
Totally.
here. You can
Totally.
think that
Yeah.
if you don't, if you want to watch my videos and then make negative comments about them, well, you're the one who sat and watched my 8-minute video of me talking. So that's on you. So I delete those comments and move on. But it would have me thinking when I do my next video, well, I don't want to talk too much. No, I'm going to say
Ye
what I'm feeling. And there are so many people who connect to it and say thank you so much, whether they're validating or not. I feel validated because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But it does feel good when you do have people say thank you for this really meant a lot to me, this part really spoke to me. And then you have that one person that says this was a waste of time, I watched 8 minutes of you talking. And that one person can just be so overshadowing to everything else, and being able to get yourself back in the right mindset. And then also, like I said, you're watching yourself a lot on camera. And so it's easy to look at yourself and go, your face looks a little bloated in this video, or, this is a certain way in this video. And then being able to see that, feel that, acknowledge that, and then be like, we're moving through that. Like, that's not what
Yeah.
we're doing here. It's not what, because it will drive you to just want to stop. If you start picking everything apart about yourself, and now I'm in a place where I just edit and I just upload. I don't even go back and look at them after that because I just don't want to get caught in that spiral. But I think that, like you've said, there's this sense of, especially with people in this community that feel like they're not going to be able to succeed or grow or do the things that they love to do. There's a few people I've talked to who are in like medical school, and they just feel like, how am I ever going to work with patients, or how are patients going to trust me that I would be able to help them when I'm over here a blushing, flushing mess, all turning red and look like I have issues. And so a big thing for us is just, let's talk about it. And for some people, you said this in your video about epilepsy too, that your story is your story. You don't have to share it. And I found that
Totally.
really empowering as well, because I think there's so much around share your story, share your story, share your story. But then there's also, I think, a lot of empowerment around, but you don't have to if you don't want to. And I think that comes back to some of the things that you talked about with some of the therapies that you're helping people work through, is that maybe it's not always about sharing all the ins and outs of the things that are deep and true to you. You said that, and then Dr. Julie Groveman, who's a PhD psychologist, I think, she said that in one of my interviews with her, was that because she flushes, and I was like, so as a psychologist, do you tell people like when they see that, do you just say, oh well, exposure, let's talk about it? And she said, not all the time. Sometimes I don't feel like talking about it, so I just move on.
Mhm.
And I was like,
Yeah.
that is so empowering too, because you don't owe anybody an explanation if you don't want to owe anybody an explanation, which was kind of the other side of the coin. And I heard you mention that too in regards to epilepsy, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that like almost sometimes comes up for me too, because I still feel like I haven't shared all of my story and some things in like early childhood. But it's like, if I'm being honest with myself, like right now it's just not the time. And it's like,
Mhm.
that's okay. Right now I don't need to share everything. And you just really have to follow what's authentic to you. And kind of talking about like the trolls or people commenting like you talk too much or whatever. I know I was always really scared about that, but then when I learned that like if you are being authentic, there will be trolls. Not everyone will approve of you, and if everyone is approving of you, you're actually not being authentic. So like celebrate it because it's a good thing. So I know for me, like play can actually make adults really uncomfortable, right? They're like, oh, that's weird, or like, oh, that makes me uncomfortable, right? Because often we only learn it's okay to be playful on like drugs or alcohol as adults. So
Mhm.
if anyone comments like, you look so weird or you look crazy, like I get those comments, yeah, I totally delete that. I'm like, there's no space for this here. Like, this isn't productive. If someone like
Right.
actually wanted to have a conversation with me that I felt like they were open minded, absolutely, let's chat. I don't delete comments like that. But when it's like so like one sided and it's just like an insult, then I don't have time for that. This is my space, and like this is like supposed to.
Exactly.
So I definitely relate with that a lot.
You offer a program called ThoughtPLAY. Can you tell us more about that and how that could be beneficial to a person who may be struggling with urethrophobia, which is the fear of blushing, or just chronic blushing in general? How could that be helpful to people with their own thoughts of negativity around their condition?
Thought play is really centered around healing fear of judgment, healing shame, perfectionism, so that you can be your fullest expression of self and live confidently in the world. So I think it is so fitting for that. I know it is exactly what I needed on my healing journey. So basically, it is about inner child healing, healing your wounded inner child that doesn't feel lovable or worthy or feels like you have to hide or it's scary to be seen. And we do that through all the mindset work we talked about earlier. So we do that through NLP, time techniques, EFT, hypnotherapy, and then we also play. So we play and return to your creative inner child. So you really learn how to be seen in the world without this need to perform. So it is an 8-week journey. It is one-on-one coaching with me. So we get to hang one-on-one and we have a great time. So our sessions are half play and then half mindset. And you also get a play box and a playbook in the mail, which is one of my favorite things. So you get this mysterious box full of goodies with a playbook as well to take you on the 8-week journey. In the playbook, you get home play every week. So this is fun homework to keep you tapped into your playful self during our time together. So yeah, highly recommend Thought Play. It is truly life changing for everyone who's done it. I also am really excited that I have a group program coming up. So this is my first group program. It's launching in June 2022, which is so wild. It's so soon. This is actually coming because of my clients who have done Thought Play. They have just said like, wow, this work would be so powerful to do in a group container. So it is going to be similar but different, but you are going to have this safe community of people who want to express themselves playfully, really want to learn to be seen in this safe container. And we're going to do all the mindset work. We're going to heal a lot of inner child healing wounds, have fun doing it. So yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited to bring all these amazing humans together because I find with one-on-one coaching, I'm just like, oh, I wish you could meet this person. Like, you have so much in common and it would just be so beautiful to bring you together. So finally doing it in June and so excited.
I think that this could be something that would be such a positive thing for people of the community of Blushing Phoenix, because one thing that I do see with these types of communities around blushing and flushing is that there are some Facebook groups out there and different little community groups, but I'm a part of them. I'm in those and I can see them every once in a while. But what is happening in those groups is bringing a lot of people together, and what they talk about is how much they hate what they're dealing with. And I think there is a time and place for that. And I think that that may be where some people are in their journey. But people have asked me, like, are you going to create a course? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? And I'm like, I don't really feel like that I'm called to all of that quite yet. But I do think, and what I would say to people who are struggling with chronic blushing, urethrophobia, fear of judgment, people pleasing, codependency, all the things, hyperhidrosis, and other things that just make people feel very shameful of who they are because of some sort of condition that they're living with, is that yes, talk about it, say how much you hate it, and then move into something more so like what you have put together, Thought Play, or this community group that you're going to be, this new program that you're doing, because it will help you shift out of just that language and feeling and belief system of how awful this is into feeling more empowered about who you are, knowing that you're empowered and knowing that this doesn't define you, and take away all of your opportunities in life. It's more so just the way we we're thinking about it that is making us lose all of those opportunities in life. And that's something I would say for me, is that because I did overcome erythrophobia, not to be confused with that I don't flush anymore, because I do, but I overcame the fear of that. And a lot of that was by exposing it, number one, learning more about it, and then getting around people like yourself and others who championed me and spoke life into me and asked me questions that were deep rooted questions, and then therapies of my own that I've been a part of, to really help me just reframe everything that I've ever believed about myself because of that condition. Kara, in our conclusion here, one thing that I like to do with everybody that I bring onto this channel is right here at the end, somebody who's watched the video all the way through. This is like their last stop. They've listened to you and me chat this whole time. And this is their moment of just kind of clinging to you for a second. No pressure. If you have that person in front of you, they're at this part of the video. What do you want to say to this person, whether they're struggling with erythrophobia, blushing, flushing, epilepsy, whatever that thing is that's bringing them great shame and debilitation around their self-worth? What would you want to say to that person who's listening to you right now?
Yeah, I would ask them, what does 5-year-old you need right now? So, say right now you're feeling really triggered, a lot of shame is coming up. What I personally ask myself is, okay, what does like little Kara need? Like, what does that 5-year-old version need? And maybe that means writing her a letter, writing yourself like a letter of gratitude for why you're so amazing, or maybe treating yourself to ice cream or going on a little walk. Really starting to like, that's something solid you can do to do that reparenting, because I think with all of this work, it's learning how to love yourself, right, from within. And once you do that, then you can start having more authentic relationships and a more authentic career to you as well. But it all starts from like pouring within. And often when we ask, like, we think about the hurt little one in us feeling so much shame. It's like, I know little me, when I felt so much shame, I needed someone to tell me I was lovable. I needed someone to tell me I was worthy, that epilepsy didn't define me, that it's totally okay. I'm still going to be accepted. I'm not going to be abandoned. And when you start telling yourself those things, that can be really powerful.
Thank you so much. I selfishly, when I do these videos, I get to like extract all this information firsthand. I'm like, I always get off of these calls and I'm like, I can't wait for everybody to experience that. Thank you so much for, number one, for your time today. I really appreciate you just taking time out of your schedule to just come and speak with me. And I know that this is going to be so beneficial to the people who hear it. And number two, thank you for the work that you do just to help people, and the pouring out of yourself, that you are giving so much of yourself each day. When we talk about those trolls and we talk about people that have this hurt that are projecting that out into the world around them, I think about you having people in these programs that you're putting together, that these are real people in the world that are getting this sort of information, going through these types of therapies and techniques that they can learn for themselves. And that's making our world so much better. You know, when you think about, I just want to make the world a better place, if I could have some sort of positive impact, it's you really are. And I think that that is something I'm excited for people to check you out. I will have all your information in my description box below. I'm just excited for people to know more about you and how they could connect more with themselves by having somebody like you guide them through that. So thank you for your work. Thank you for who you are. And thank you for spending this time with me so that I can have these reminders as well.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Thank you for having me on. And honestly, you're doing such amazing work as well. So it's been beautiful to connect with you.